The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Alone in the Realm, a premium solo TTRPG podcast. I'm DV, your humble GM and adventurer. Alone in the Realm is a podcast where we let the dice drive the story, and we are along for the ride. No characters beyond death, and we let the dice lay where they fall. We'll be playing Mothership by Tuesday Night Games, and the Mega Dungeon module, Gradient Descent, by Luke Gearing. Gradient Descent, Episode 9. Here's a quick reminder of our characters. Denzel McNelly, EM. Hit points, 11 out of 11. Stress, 7. Bins, 17. Therese Montz, she, her. Hit points, 16 out of 17. Stress, 6. Bins, 13. Ollie Kenworth, 17 out of 17 hit points. Stress, 11. Bins, 10. Ada, automated droid assistant. They, them. Hit points, 3 out of 14. 1 out of 3 wounds. Stress, 6. Bins, 22. Last episode, the crew ran into the other divers on floor 6, and they helped them hide from the searching security forces. While waiting in the garbage disposal room, the other divers located an invaluable artifact. They decided to try to leave through an air duct in the tool depot, only Therese triggered the hunter's web. At the same time, the security droids found out their location as well. They, however, fled the scene when the hunter arrived. When we ended last session, the hunter had broken through the door to the tool depot, and the crew was ready to begin the fight. Our chaos factor is 7, and we'll now test the expected scene with Mythic. I got a D10, and I rolled an 8 versus 7, the expected scene. So the combat will go on as anticipated. Monarch stress is currently 4, and here's a reminder of the hunter's stats. His combat stat is 65. His instinct is 65 as well. He has 4 wounds, and each wound has 40 hit points. His scythe-like legs do 40-10 damage, and with each attack that is successful, it initiates a fear save. And he can also do a steel web for 1d10 damage, and the target must make a body save or be knocked down. The hunter's bladed legs sliced through the door, and it fell in shredded ribbons to the ground. It stooped low to try to squeeze through the opening. Denzel wasted no time and fired Lillian's EMP rifle at the spider-like android. With the firing of an EMP, we'll increase Monarch stress by 1. It's now up to 5. And we will make a panic check for Monarch. That's a D20. And we got a 3 versus a 5. That's a fail. For the next 1d5 rounds, go ahead and roll that. That's 5. Encounters will all be hostile. Ooh. The encounters will all be security androids too. Alright. That's okay. So all hostile encounters for the next 5 encounters. So I guess Monarch has probably given the security androids our description and told them to be on the lookout for us or something. Okay, so now we're going to do our attacks. Denzel, attack the hunter with our EMP rifle. Come on, D100. We got a 53 versus a 40. That's a fail. +1 stress for Denzel. That's now at 8 stress. Ollie, attack with the pulse rifle. 89 versus a 44. Fail. +1 stress. He's now up to 12 stress. Ada, attack with your SMG. Oh boy. Come on, Ada. 98 versus 24. Fail. +1 stress. 7 stress. Xenia attacks with her hand cannon. Come on, Xenia. 24 versus 25. Our hit. First hit of the day. Nice. And her hand cannon does 4d10 damage. Excellent. 4d10. That is 14 damage. His hit points are down to 24 out of 40 for the first wound. Miko continues to wind the crank on her laser rifle to reload. It is a single shot pulse rifle that requires a crank every time that it fires. Think of the laser musket in Fallout 2D20 or the Fallout video games. Mythic Fate check. Is the hole in the door big enough for the hunter? 100. 4 versus 75. Extreme yes. I think that means it'll also get to attack as well as moving inside. So the hunter is going to attack Miko, who's the closest to the door. He rolled an 82 versus a 65. That's a miss. As the door shattered and the hunter began to step through, the divers all opened fire. Denzel, Ollie, and Ada's shots all splashed against the remaining shreds at the door harmlessly. Xenia's hand cannon blast burst against the torso of the hunter with a loud bang. The impact caused the initial attack against Miko to fly wide. Mythic Fate check. Does anyone come back through the vent to help? Nearly impossible, I'll say. That's a 4 versus a 35, an extreme miss. All 3 of the divers who had already escaped decide to come back and save the rest of the crew. Grace, however, will still stay in the vent, and she'll fire from there. She's not a team player. Denzel's both disappointed and gladdened to see Therese and Lillian drop back out of the vent to help in the fight. Grace pokes her head and her Shrike gauntlet gun through the opening. She, of course, would not take any risks for herself above anyone else. Denzel, attack the hunter once again with the EMP. 31 versus a 40, a hit. Nice. Hunter body save at disadvantage. Go ahead and roll 2 sets of 2d10. That's a 96 and a 65. Both fail. Nice. He will be immobilized for 1d5 rounds. 4 rounds. Nice. Disabled 4 rounds. Ollie, shoot him with an auto hit. No use rolling for an attack if the guy's immobilized. A real damage for Ollie. 3d10 is 20 damage. The hunter is now down to 4 out of 40 hit points. Ada, she'll get to auto hit with her SMG. 2d10 damage. 4 damage. The hunter now has 1 out of 4 wounds. The hunter's wound roll. Here we go. Come on, baby. It's a gunshot wound. She rolled 1. Bleeding +1. That's alright. Good job, Ada. Therese, she's going to fire her SMG as well. 2d10 damage. 12 damage. The hunter is now down to 28 out of 40 on his second wound. Xenia, she's going to fire her autocannon. Oh boy, this is going to be a big one. 40-10 damage. 26 damage. Whew. The hunter's now down to 2 out of 40 hit points. Miko, fire your laser rifle. It's only a 2d10 damage. 9 damage. This is the second wound for the hunter, and he's now down to 33 out of 40 hit points on his next wound, which will be the third one. Miko's weapon causes bleeding damage, so we're gonna roll on the bleeding table with advantage for the hunter's next wound. Let's roll for advantage. Ooh, bad for the hunter, good for us. He rolled a 9 and a 2. We take the 9 because that's the most severe wound. His throat slit or his heart is pierced. Death save. Oh, poor little hunter. Poor little hunter. You never know with the wound table. You never know. Alright, we're going to roll a death save for the hunter. D10, he got a 3. He is comatose. Grace doesn't stop firing, however. She goes ahead and fires. And she gets 8 damage. And the hunter is now down to 25 out of 40 hit points with 2 out of 4 wounds. Okay. Wow. Ollie gets +1 stress at seeing an android quote-unquote killed. He's now at 13 stress. Denzel fired the EMP once again. This time it zapped the electronics of the spider droid. The others gave a whoop and started pelting it with gunfire. Miko's shot, in particular, lanced through a critical part of the droid, and a small arc of light flared from its chest. Mythic fate check. Do they finish it off? I would say likely. 95 versus an 85. No, they don't. Okay. Mythic fate check. Does Grace's crew know of another exit? Unlikely. I got a 22 versus a 65. Yes, they do. And it's a random event. Roll on the random event table. I got a 1, a remote event. Okay. I think I know what to do with this. Arcadie's voice came crackling over Teresa's comms. He was breaking up due to how deep in the station they were. It was clear, however, that he was saying the loading dock was swarming with security androids. Grace nodded to Miko, giving her some unknown signal. Miko responded to Arcadie that he should make way to the main thrusters of the deep, and that they would meet him there. They all squeezed past the injured and disabled hunter. Ada wondered aloud if Monarch would find and repair him. Several members of both crews gave her a curious look. Grace instructed them to drop their visors once again and warned them they would be soon going into hostile areas. They opened a door in the intersection that led into a room filled with dials and readouts, outlining the oxygen levels in each floor. They could see that all floors have good levels, except for floor 5, which had no oxygen. Now I'll roll for an encounter check. I got a 60. None. What's on floor 5? Ollie asked. Grace mumbled something about him eating crap and dying. No one else deigned to answer. They opened the bulkhead door and entered a darkened room that was dimly lit with green and yellow lamps around giant, sealed glass cubes filled with algae. They walked for around 30 minutes in silence through this gargantuan space. Ollie wondered if this was where the station had its oxygen created and carbon dioxide scrubbed. Grace once again mentioned him making turd sandwiches and dying. As they walked, automated arms extended across the surface of the algae within the cubes and sprayed it with water. It was ominously peaceful in here. Alright, since it took them 30 minutes, we're going to roll 3 encounter checks. That is an 87, an 80, and a 79. No encounters. They finally came to a sequence of bulkhead doors and an airlock. It was locked, and Therese was happy to have the tools she had pilfered. She shot a look of "I told you so" to Miko. It took her a few minutes, but she successfully opened the door, and they entered a room filled with numerous panels and switches. In the light from their suits, they could see steel web glittering over all of the controls. It gave all of them a shiver, except for Grace. Now I'll roll for another encounter. I got a 33. No! We know this encounter will be security androids due to the Monarch's panic check I rolled earlier. How many will it be? 1d5? 5 androids. We also know that they're weaker than our group from the 33, so I will give them all half health. Maybe they faced some danger elsewhere. They opened up the lightweight metal door at the end of the room, and there, in the narrow hallway in front of them, walked 5 faceless security androids. Grace wasted no time and launched a grenade from her launcher down the hallway into their midst. The security androids have a combat skill of 60, and they are wielding steel wool shotguns so that they don't do damage with missed shots onto the station itself. The shotguns do 3d10 damage and are harmless to objects. They have an instinct of 50. They have 1 wound with 10 hit points per wound. Grace attacks with her grenade launcher. She rolled a 70 versus a 50. That's a fail. However, it's hard to miss with a grenade, so I will say it still hits 2 of them. The rest are shielded from the blast. That's going to be a 3d10 damage. 23 damage to Android 1 and Android 2. Both are killed. Ollie gets +1 stress from seeing an android killed. That gives him 14 stress. Monarch gets +1 stress. That's 6 stress for Monarch. Xenia is now going to attack. She's attacking android number 3 with her hand cannon. She rolled a 20 versus a 25. That's a hit. 4d10 damage. Ooh, what a weapon. 25 damage. Android 3 is killed. Ollie goes up +1 stress. His stress is now at 15. Ooh. Monarch goes up +1 stress. Her stress is at 7. Lillian is going to attack Android 4 with her revolver. She doesn't want to use the EMP. So she's going to fire 27 versus a 40. That's a hit. That's 1d10 +1 damage. That is 4 damage. Android 4 is now down to 6 out of 10 hit points. Miko also attacks Android 4. She rolls a 3 versus a 30. That's a hit. 2d10 damage. 17. Android 4 is killed. Ollie gets +1 stress. His stress is now at 16. Monarch gets +1 stress. Her stress is now at 8. Denzel is going to attack android number 5. That is a 15 versus a 40. That's a hit. He rolls 2d10 damage with his weapon, and he gets a 6. Android 5 is now down to 4 out of 10 hit points. Ada also attacks Android 5. 72 versus a 24. That's a miss. She gets +1 stress. Her stress is now at 8. Ollie also attacks Android 5. Android. That's a 30 versus a 44. That's a hit. He does 3d10 damage. That's 15 damage. Killed. Ollie +1 stress. Stress now at 17. Oh my god. This android empathy is going to kill him. Monarch also gets +1 stress. Her stress is now at 9. Things are getting hot in here. The firefight ended almost as soon as it had begun. Grace's grenade exploded in the midst of the security androids, and 2 of them immediately went down. The rest of the crew were able to silence the remainder without the androids being able to fire even a single shot. Mythic fate check. Are any of the shotguns still good? Likely. 83 versus an 85, yes. The crews gather up the steel wool firing shotguns. They can sell those back to Arcady or just keep them for themselves. Grace's crew takes 4, she insisted. And Denzel took the last one. They hustled on down the hallway and turned down a branch leading to a room labeled Power Generator. They opened up the bulkhead door, and within was a massive room. A shielded nuclear core ran underneath a narrow inspection walkway. Alright, this is going to be another large room, so it'll take us 30 minutes to traverse it. I'm going to roll 3 encounter checks. That's a 56 and an 81. And the last one is a 92. No encounters. The crew wasted no time and exited the room after another 30-minute walk through the massive area. They went into another gigantic room filled with tight-bladed metal coils in organic patterns. Ollie explained to anyone who would listen that this was where the station cooled the nuclear generators. Even with their vac suits on, the extreme heat in the room was unbearable. They retreated back into the power generator to discuss what to do next. "Didn't you know about this already?" Denzel went to wipe sweat from his brow but forgot his visor was still down. "We'll never survive a walk through that place without a hazmat suit. These vac suits won't stop that heat."
"How dare you question me, you feces juggling ass butt? I knew about the exit, but not what was in between us and it. There, satisfied?"
Grace screamed in his face. Sweat beaded on her bald head. Denzel just cursed and turned away. "What now, then?" he pressed. They discussed among themselves the best course of action. Ultimately, they had no choice but to turn back. Over an hour had passed since their conflict with the Hunter, and Monarch didn't seem to have reacted further after their hallway battle. They decided to try to reach Arcady on the comms again. Mythic fate check. Can Arcady be reached on the comms from here? Very unlikely. 28 versus 50. Yes, he can. The connection was very poor, and Arcadia was none too pleased at having been made to wait for them once again. They asked if he could fly back past the loading dock to see if there was still android activity there. He agreed reluctantly, and a few minutes later he came back over the comms. Mythic fate check. Are the security androids gone from the docks? 47 versus 75, yes. Arcady reported that the docks were clear of any activity, but he reminded them that the interior of the station might still be on alert. He'd already been waiting for several hours now and was ready to return to the bell. They were deep within the station, and it would take over an hour just to get back to the loading docks from here. Mythic fate check. Will Arcady remain for one more hour? Nearly impossible. 51 versus 35, no. Arcady informed them they were on their own, and to only call once again if they were in position to be picked up. Grace cursed when Miko delivered the news. She rounded on Denzel.
"You little good-for-nothing, crap-eating, pig-kissing dirt trap. We got this priceless artifact, and we're stuck here because of you."
She poked her finger hard into his chest. Denzel held his temper and said nothing in return.
"You folks are on your own. Don't follow us."
And she stormed off down the catwalk over the generator. Denzel waited until they were several minutes ahead, then he motioned for his crew to follow along. "We have no choice but to follow you, idiot," he said to Grace, though she was far beyond earshot. End of scene. Chaos factor is +1 up to 8 now. Things have definitely escalated, and the characters are in a very tough spot. Monarch's stress is at 9. Well, great. We're trapped down here. We have to backtrack all the way back to the loading docks. We will undoubtedly run into more encounters on the way. I'm sure we'll have further encounters with Grace and her crew. They are all NPCs from the excellent Hundreds supplement, linked above. We've been in the deep for 4 hours this trip. We can go for another 8 hours before we start to suffer from exhaustion. If we have to sleep here, well, that means more bins, and that won't be good. I'll see you next time. Bye. If you want to help support the show, consider leaving a like and a comment, as that really helps the algorithm. Consider sharing the link on your favorite social media.